Hi, so this lecture is a continuation to our previous discourse surrounding Bidrohi by Kazi Nazrul Islam. We are reading the English translation and we've left off till the fifth cantos, but I would like to recollect some of the discussions we had previously and revise and start from the fifth cantos itself. And to revise our previous discussion, we talked a bit about how this poetry worked as a form of freedom, being a fundamental tool. But the central theme is definitely madness in the macrocosmic confrontation of truth and justice. And it calls for a renewal of system, which is very chaotic, but also quite passionate in the indomitable spirits, which takes on a superhumanistic form. It also emphasizes on love for humanity and it calls for victory for the common masses to abolish discrimination of all sort. In 1925, and do go back and check if I've gotten the year right, he formed the Labour Swaraj Party of the Indian National Congress, which was later known to be the Workers' and Peasant Party. এবং এই রাজনৈতিক দর্শনটা আসলে ওনার তৈরি করার কারণটা যদি বলা যায় একটা কারণই হবে যে সেটা হচ্ছে যে শোষণের বিরুদ্ধে যে লেবার পার্টি এবং ওয়ার্কিং ক্লাস এবং ম্যাসেজ আছে তাদের জন্য যে ধরনের যে ধরনের কষ্ট এবং যে ধরনের অ্যাক্টিভিজম নিয়ে উনি কাজ করছিলেন সেটা আসলে ভাষায় প্রকাশ করার মতন না. Because in the contemporary times, we find very few people who would be the frontliners of this sort of victory. কারণ দেখা যাচ্ছে যে ব্রিটিশদের বিরুদ্ধে শাসনের যে শাসন ছিল এটার বিরুদ্ধে যে একটি রাজনৈতিক শক্তি তৈরি করা যেটা হচ্ছে কমন মেসেজ দিয়ে করা হচ্ছে সেই দলটির মাধ্যমে দেখা যাচ্ছে আমরা শ্রমিক কৃষক এদের অধিকার এবং একটি শোষণমুক্ত সমাজ গঠনের লক্ষ্য নিয়ে যখন একটি কর্মকাণ্ড শুরু হয় এখানে আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি যে একজন কবি হচ্ছে central to this huge change or call for change that we find. So when we go back to going back to the poem itself, we find that the speaker calls himself endlessly wicked and he believes that he's a golden cup of time. And golden cup of time could be the allusion to two different factors in religious discourses. It could be the rewards we find. The golden cup of time is very central as a symbol in Buddhism and Hinduism, showcasing the polarities of affirmation and uncompromising forms of blessings. He says that full to the brim with life and love, bad luck, and good wine. And we find that there is an opposing contrast in this discourse. The speaker says that he is the smoldering embers of hearth and home, and Jamadagni, the warrior, guardian of the flame, and he's the fire, singer, and song, worship and devotion, betrayal and seduction, creation and destruction. So we find a duality in this rhythm. He says that he's everything and he's nothing at the same time, and that takes a very stoic term, the maximalist and minimalist form of spirituality in itself. It says that I'm the house of the living, I'm the ashes of the dead, I am Indrani's child, moon and sun on my shoulders, and in my hands her bamboo flute and battle spear. I'm blue-throated Shiva, drinking poison and pain down to the last drop. The river Ganga calmed and filtered through my matted locks. Say hero, say I, raise my head ever high. So we find that there is an allusion to Shiva as there are to the previous counters we have studied, that carries a destructive force with divinity, its serenity, and with its utmost kindness. And this is a form of selfless leadership, which is quite punishing, but also quite rewarding at the same time. And I think that's what it means to be human. We cannot be either or. It's juxtaposition of both. He says, I'm a soldier and a monk. I'm a prince in astonishing finery, and Bedouin and Genghis. And so this is interesting because he's referring to Genghis Khan and at the same time he's referring to the nomad Bedouin. And as we know that Genghis Khan was the conqueror from Pacific Ocean to Hungary, and he had taken a huge part, I think, of the whole world through his colonial powers. And some would say he's a hero, others would say he's a terrible colonizer. And you'd find that violence is quite central in the poem. And so, notably, in the very next line, we find that the speaker, despite of being both, bows down to nobody. And he's the thunder of broken bones, and I'm the birth of Om. I'm Israfil's trumpet. And here we find an Islamic illusion, which is sounding at the end of the world. I am Shiva's Damadu, the heartbeat of creation. He's Vishnu, he's Chakra, he's Pranav, he's Durvasa, he's the fire, and he's furious. And he is willing to burn evil. And by saying you, I believe that the speaker is talking about the evil, is definitely referring to or alluding to indirectly to the colonial rules. And he believes that he has fearless protest and revolution ready narratives against these British colonial rules. And he skillfully utilizes this with using the Hindu and Muslim culture both working together effectively. And these scriptures are very important because it showcases a form of union, which is very, very important in the current discourse as well. And that also elaborates to a renewal of the system that we initially know that the renewal of systems can be only referred to the immortals, but what Nazrul is trying to tell us that it's not only the immortals, it's also mortals who have that superhumanistic power, while also emphasizing on love and peace at the same time. Because he says, I'm your salty, smiling joy, and the horror that will crush it. I'm the death of the 12 sons. I'm turbulent and calm. I am a hot-blooded killer and a lover of justice. And this transcending forms of boundaries beyond religion really talks about how there are no limits to hierarchy, and it breaks that sort of narrative because he is God, but at the same time, he's the son of many. He is the prince, he's the king, but he's also the God. And he says that he's faithful and true, and he shines as bright as a star. And we find there are various subliminal nature, and I believe it's subliminal and definitely referring to Burke as well, because it forms this kind of poem is referring to the elaboration of fear, the elaboration of danger, but at the same time, it's so thrilling. And that's what poetry is supposed to provide us, especially protest poetry. It doesn't have to always seem to talk about danger, it also should talk about overcoming danger to welcome love, peace, and serenity with open arms. I really like the seventh cantos for obvious reasons because we find that he is moving across the narratives of gender discourses because he says that, when I say I, and this is what we discussed last class, I is the self, but self can take different forms. And I don't want to go into, you know, different theoretical narratives here, but the self is not singular. It's definitely quite plural and takes so many different forms. And we find that in the seven cantos, we see that speaker is taking the form of sister. I am you, sister, in your braided hair, 16 wide awake, full of hope. I'm you, mother, alone in your grief, and the ghost of your lost love. I'm hunger staring into your eyes. I'm your courage staring back. I'm forever homeless. I beg on the street. I'm you, scorned, poison burned, heartbroken. I'm your anger. I'm your pride. I'm your pain, forever. And the dream of a stolen kiss, of a first trembling touch, a secret love, a hidden smile, the glow of lust. I'm the music of your wedding bangles. I'm forever a child, forever a teen, forever a shy village maiden. I'm the north wind, the wind of the warm southern seas, the bored east wind, the breath of song. I am the blazing sun. I'm desert clear. I'm shadow green. I am the sudden awakening at the foot of the master. After centuries of study, all channels open, floodgate down. I am insanity. I am me. So the speaker isn't shying away from showcasing us that God is not separate from humanity and vice versa, that man is no different from woman, and the power lies within both. And this kind of resilience is there's a beauty in kind of nature in this cantos, and it reminds me of Mahmoud Darwish's "To My Mother." I want you to take some time and go through the poem itself as well. It's so beautiful how both of these poems are from two different people going through two different struggles. Yet the craving of motherhood, the craving of nature, the craving of home is so innately strong. And the joy and grief of the simplest things that we have in being human is narrated in this cantos. And that's what I think is very effective here, because he embodies himself as sort of a woman, a mother, a sister, showcasing a form of equality in gender. And later we find that there are various narratives as well. But if we would move across knowing about Kaji Nazrul Islam's personal narrative and belief system towards equality, it transcended towards not only gender equality, but also equality for sex workers, equality for women in the working classes, equality for women who are also farmers. And these narratives always go silent, always go unvoiced. And he takes in these forms, and not only in this poem, but many of his other poems, if you get some time and go through them, will be very effective. And at the end of this cantos, we find that he is again taking the form of nature, showcasing that nature itself is evil and mad, and you can never really know what it truly stands for. And this can be really scary because we're only mortals, and nature is always going to cease to exist. And I think what Nazrul is trying to tell us here is even though one day we may not be here, what we leave across is going to be translated into nature. It's going to be translated into the change that we keep here. So the speaker is obviously not scared of death, but we definitely find that he is accepting of death and knowing that his life is short, what he has to provide, his strength, his bravery, his confidence in his narrative will linger around in this wind that he has embraced himself to be and to be a form of. In the eighth countess, there is a notion of how humanity itself can seem very sublime because birth is quite destructive. He says that I'm asleep and awake, and I live in the instant, I live in forever. I'm a festival of light and thunder, the glory of the world, the triumph of humanity. I'm a breaker of Borback, the seven-headed horse. I revel in its shrill cry of freedom. And in this shrill cry of freedom, I burrow down with a volcano and spit out molten lava. I'm the earthquake, I'm hellfire, I'm forest flame, I'm ocean madness. I sink my claws into Vasuki, the snake king coiled around Vishnu's neck. I seize Gabriel's fiery wing. I am a child god, a monster. I gnash my teeth and bite into the womb of Mother Earth. And this kind of form can seem as as if the speaker has a divide and conquer policy. But while that is carrying itself, but there is a form that is not definitely lost, knowing the factor that there's a form of fear that really works in the readers when we read it. I don't know about you, but it's definitely working well for me in these rifts between um, mythological narratives that he has embodied himself to be. And he affirms this kind of protest to destroy, but at the same time to create. And these polarities are synthesizing very well in the poem because it's a universal affirmation for the exploited, the subjugated, the powerless, and those who have resigned from all sorts of hope. He doesn't want that because what he truly wants is empowerment and courage and desire to be resilient in a form of spiritual unity. And the flute of Orpheus, I calm the raging sea, I kiss the world to sleep, and the flute of blue black Chime's hand. When I rise up in anger, the seven fires recoil in fear, and even hell is damned. I am a song sung to the earth and sky, a cry of never-ending revolution. This is where we find that the speaker directly speaks about revolution himself. And that's important because I want you to know that, it's known that while this was published in Saptahik Bijli, supposedly he had written this in one night when he was in Calcutta. And I think that form of writing these narratives that is highly, highly relative to the contemporary times, I think this is very romantic for him because I don't know if you know this, but romantic poets believed in the spontaneous overflow of this kind of powerful emotion that they felt. And what he writes, when I say romantic, I don't mean prem romantic. I definitely mean about romantic of nature, romantic of revolution. And that pierces through these natural forces of the universe. And this courage of the self is very important virtue for the speaker that he showcases through the narratives of these deities. And that's very important for us to also look into because this poem is could be a question to you would be what is this universal affirmation for? Why is this important? What kind of forgotten history are we reclaiming again? What about the British colonization still? What about it? How is it really affecting us in the current times? I'm the mighty flood, I sweep away palace and hut. It's palace and hut both at the same time. What do you think about this? Like, what do you think that this is going to like focus on? Uh, could it also locate how we know that the working class do suffer from a sense of destruction by the colonial powers, but the natural forces as well, both at the same time, and much of their livelihood is either lost by these powerful forces of colonial narratives and colonial chokehold, and on the other hand, nature itself, flood, works in its way as well. And this is to showcase a very important factor. I'm not putting both of them at the same pedestal, but I want you to know this, that when the unavoidable circumstances of natural forces take the huts away, take the livelihood of these working classes. It is these British colonizers or powerful forces that come to no help, whereas they tell us, they sell us this dream that they're here to protect us, they're here to to enlighten us. They're here to bring in a better form of narrative that is obviously lost in translation, particularly because what they want is power, and what they want is to showcase that power to the quote unquote weaker communities. I bless and I curse the earth. I steal the treasured twins from Vishnu's breast. I'm injustice. I'm lightning. I'm Saturn. I'm the comet's fiery tail. I'm poison's deadly grip. I'm Chandni, the destroyer, the fury of women. I cut off my head and drink my own blood. I am the fires of hell and smile like a flower. This is this is, I think, beautiful because he takes the form of not only deities who are specifically binarily men or non-binary, but also takes the narrative, the unsung heroes of the society, unsung heroes of the religious scriptures, which are Chandni or Kalima. Uh, and this sense of reliance is very important because it showcases Nadi and womanhood, Birangona. All these narratives come across not as a form of glorification, but as a form of power and resilience. And this resilience is very specific because these are always, and they always remain unvoiced. They're never talked about, even when resilience, heroism is narrated in any form of stage. And so he says, I'm earth, I'm clay, I'm spirit, I'm eternal, I'm endless misery, I'm a spectre haunting the earth, feared by human, God, and demon. I'm truth everlasting, the creator of all. I'm mad, crazy mad. I know who I am, and nothing can stop me. I'm the battle axe of Parashuram. I kill killers, I war against warlords. I am a bringer of peace, a destroyer of caste and class. I am Balaram, the strong. My weapon is the plow. I dig up the roots of injustice and unleash the joy of creation. Couple of highlights, if I may. The warlords are referring to the British colonizer, and he believes he's the bringer of this peace, a peacemaker who's going to destroy these caste and class divisions that really divide not the working class, because dividing the working class, dividing the common people would only mean that there's more power, there's more political authority, or a totalitarian future for those who are in power. And the weapon that he chooses is the plow. Very important symbolism here. The metaphor showcases that the speaker is the working class, the speaker is the common man who is going to destroy these specific divisions that the colonial power, the warlords had created. And he's going to dig up the roots of these kind of injustice, and he's going to relish in this joy of creation, of creating a newer world, a newer society, which was always supposed to be. And and the Battle of Parashuram is important because in the illusion narrative, sort of Parashuram is the destroyer of tyrannical rulers, and he would kill these killers, as a form of karmic justice. Battle weary, I will know peace when the cry of the oppressed does not rend the sky, when the tyrant's sword will strike no more. Battle weary, I will know peace. And Brigu, the rebel sage, I will stamp my footprint on the chest of God. I will shatter his indifference to the pain of the world. And Brigu, the rebel sage, I will stamp my footprint on the chest of God. I will change everything. I am the ever rebellious hero. Alone, I have risen beyond the world, held head held ever high. This is awakening the gods, and it's not only about the immortals, but what he's going to do and how he's going to do it. He's going to footprint on the chest of the god, a kind of God that is indifferent to the pain of the world, a kind of God that knows the pain, knows the problems, and yet is tests these people and these people who work day and night. And so Bhrigu is the one who kicked Vishnu's chest to test the gods, and he would take that form of Bhrigu to awaken the gods to the human sufferings, to let God know that these are the ways that the people that were made by these gods, by these deities, how they're suffering, and it is God that will take the responsibility. And if God doesn't, then the speaker, the mortal himself, is going to take the form of God, and no matter what that is and who that is going to take that form and represent it by utilizing a kind of egalitarian protest. And this is the symbol of the ultimate truth because he advocates for the laborers and farmers. And I'm just going to repeat that one more time because his true religion is humanity and victory for the common masses and to abolish discrimination. And these kind of forms are superhumanistic while being human himself. And this kind of intensified disgust of the British Raj showcases the unvoiced subaltern to rebel. And these kinds of rebellious nature was also found in, let's say, Maya Angelou's narrative. We find Mahmoud Darwish's narrative both at the same time working very well hand in hand. And this kind of cross-cultural references are important, particularly because we know that this was written in the 1920s, but things haven't really changed in the 21st century. We're in 2026. Time flies, and this kind of social commentary on human social culture to sort of humanize a certain kind of mobility which is so ethereal, yet yet so expressive, and it's in no way very subtle. And the self taking the form of so many different ways. We look at ourselves in the mirror and we notice that we're not who we see, but so much more. We're the rebellious hero, we're the son of God, we're God himself, we're a goddess, and all these narratives to showcase that your initial form might be just a weak human made of earth, but you're so much more that what the world sort of has to offer to you. And that's what's inspiring about this poem. And while we focus on this, I also want you to know how self-reliance and nature, both the work, are unifying together, because the speaker is standing on the ground of those that have tarnished what truth really is. And it's a landmark of a kind of poem that expresses human freedom and a revolt against its form of injustice. Because he says, proclaim, my head is held ever high. And these words sort of suggest that this rebellion or violence is not a crime, but rather a form of self-respect. Like, how much can you stay silent to a form of injustice that is generational? And this rebel is fighting to free humanity. It's not fighting to have a kind of power to rule over others, but a kind of humanity that would free oneself from fear and slavery. And Nazrul did believe that revolt is necessary when truth is denied, justice is denied, food is denied, your basic rights are denied. Then what do you become? You become the creation and the creator, the the person who's destruction. And this kind of universal freedom is important because he stands for all kinds of mankind. The I is every oppressed person who dreams of freedom of any kind. And the rebel is moving across racial, religious, national, and natural boundaries. And he fights for this kind of peace to form a sort of message, philanthropic as it is, but for all humanity. And this rebel is not glorifying what a rebel is, but rather showcasing what a true rebel would look like. A true rebel is not a glorified hero. Rather, a true hero is going to make mistakes, is going to destroy evil, but also at some point make certain decisions you wouldn't necessarily see from, let's say, a hero you'd see in the films, right? That's kind of not what he's trying to look into. He's trying to inspire mankind. This kind of rebel is telling you to fight, but love at the same time, to destroy, but also to live freely in a way that you can be more humanitarian, right? Now, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. And please notice that when we're talking about the rebel, we're also going to talk a little bit and mostly about Edmund Burke, Mahmoud Darwish, Maya Angelou together. Definitely speak about the narratives of Birangana because we've discussed about this in last class as well. Try to read these different texts side by side. I think that would be very, very effective because the rebel is relative to all of these texts.